Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Let's get rolling. I wanted to make a comment or comments on the latest attempted Trump assassination. Um, we don't know much, at least the public does not. There is some information, and I will attempt to put that information together as best I can. Um, do not rely upon my information. I don't know anything. I have no inside knowledge. I am simply trying to read the news sources and make sense out of them as best I can. So take what I say with a grain of salt. The guy who attempted to assassinate Donald Trump was a pro-Ukraine activist, and he was attempting to organize a kind of militia, I guess, of some sort to go into Ukraine and help the Ukrainian government. Now, what does that say? Well, it says that he was pretty much in line or in lock and step with the policies of the Biden administration in that respect. He supported continued assistance to Ukraine. That is what Joe Biden, that is what Kamala Harris supports. Donald Trump has been much more ambiguous on his views about Ukraine, and it's not really clear exactly what Trump would do if he got into the White House once again. And so it appears to me, and again, this is only a speculation, that the guy may have been concerned over what Donald Trump would do if he became president of the United States again. This guy was really pro-Ukraine. He had previous weapons charges. So this is a serious actor. This is not somebody who basically had no idea what he was doing. He appears to be very much in control of what he was doing. You watch what he did. It was a step-by-step procedure. He was very logical. He was very rational. He was very methodical in the way that he enacted this assassination attempt. Of course, it was only an attempted assassination. Now, think back. Last assassination attempt on Trump. The guy was a Republican. It did not help Trump that much. Trump did not go up in the opinion polls that much because of that assassination of Trump. But if this new guy turns out to be a Democrat, all bets are off. No one knows exactly what will happen. By the same token, Americans have seen Trump in performance. They saw him in the last debate with Kamala Harris, where he very clearly lost that debate. So how much this assassination attempt will help Trump, I think, is still somewhat questionable. It may give him a bump, but will that bump be sufficient for him to win the presidency? I am not sure, but I must say that I'm somewhat skeptical of that. We still have a while to go between now and November, and that is when the election takes place. The election does not take place now. It takes place in November, and that is where all eyes need to be glued. Not at this moment. Doesn't matter, really, what happens at this moment. What matters is what will be the ultimate effects of this assassination attempt on the presidential election. So, again, I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. What I can say is the guy was apprehended. That is good for law enforcement. That means that most likely he is under interrogation right now. Right now. And the feds know what they are doing. The feds have experience in dealing with people just like this attempted assailant. They know how to approach people. They know all the right games, and there are all sorts of intelligence games. And I know most of them because as a sociologist, we use many of those same games in ethnographic or participant observational research. It is not hard finding them out. You can buy a book which will tell you all the methods that are used by intelligence operatives. So when people say that sources and methods are secret, they are only half being honest. The methods are not secret. The sources are secret. But the methods are practiced by intelligence agencies all over the world. They are things that everybody who is understanding the protocol for dealing with somebody like this fellow will know. So it would appear to me that whether the guy is a Democrat or a Republican or a member of some other party or an independent, he is clearly more on the side of of Biden and Harris than he is of Trump. I mean, the guy wanted to organize a militia to go into Ukraine to fight the Russians. That is how dedicated a man he was to his cause. So I think we need to keep all of that stuff in mind, but also remembering that we really don't know anything. Now, what does law enforcement know, especially the feds? Well, I suspect the feds know a lot more than what they are saying. The feds generally do not want to tip their hands, but we have some really top-notch journalists in the business, and they also know what they are doing. So regardless of the objectives of the feds and of other law enforcement officials, these journalists will, I would say, sooner rather than later, find out exactly what was going on. My expectation, take it for what you like, is that we will have a pretty good handle, by we I mean the public, on what exactly happened in the next 2 or 3 days. But for now, it is unknown. I would not treat this as an automatic victory for Trump, because the last one was not. Even if the guy turns out to be a Democrat, that will certainly help Trump, but will it help him enough to compensate for the rather horrible debate performance he gave in his debate with Kamala Harris? I am somewhat skeptical. I think Americans are smarter than that. Plus, the MAGA movement is not what it was 8 years ago, or even 4 years ago. Even whether there is something which could justifiably be called a MAGA movement, right now I have my doubts. But certainly Trump does have his supporters. And certainly those supporters will react in a way that will be favorable to Trump as a result of the assassination attempt. But again, that does not mean that Trump will win the election. Kamala Harris is ahead, and she is ahead dramatically. Could that change? Of course it could change. Nobody knows what will happen. We have a ways to go between now and November when the election finally takes place. So my advice, if you want to take it, is not to jump the gun, not to draw to any quick conclusions, because we have no basis for doing so. We know that the first world is in a state of turmoil. We know that the first world is divided as it has never been divided before, at least not in my lifetime, in my 68 years. There is tremendous dissension, tremendous distrust between different sides of the political spectrum. And so that could mean that Trump will win. But again, my doubts are a result of the fact of looking at how he did in the last presidential debate. And he really, really screwed it up. That does not mean he won't win. There is no way of knowing at this stage who will win. Will this help him? Maybe. Maybe it will. I think it depends, again, on things that we simply don't have any information about right now. But again, what I would keep in mind is the fact that this guy was a militant, pro-Ukraine supporter. He had previously been brought up on weapons charges. He was trying to organize a pro-Ukraine militia to go into Ukraine. That is how devoted this guy was to the issue of Ukraine. Trump, on the other hand, has given little or no indication that he supports Ukraine, at least not that much. And so it does seem tentatively to me that perhaps the reason, and I would underline perhaps, is because this assailant was concerned about whether his efforts to rally people behind him to support Ukraine might be frustrated if Trump won the election. I think that is a fair statement. But again, beyond that, no one knows what will happen. And so I know people who are very strong Biden supporters. They know I am not. They know I don't care. I don't care at all. It is still the same capitalist world system which dominates the first world that is in control of much of what happens in the world today. And it is unlikely that the first world will be swayed by these kinds of events. That is not to say that what happened earlier today will not have an influence. Certainly, it will have some influence. The question is how much. And I don't think that we should be too hasty in estimating, or to use the common slang, guesstimating as to what will happen, because we simply have no way of knowing. Now, My guess is tomorrow, the next day, or definitely the next day after that, we will have a much greater grasp of the situation than we do right now. And then we can make a more firm conclusion. But a firm conclusion is not a prediction. It is simply a tentative conclusion based upon available evidence. No one knows. No one knows who this guy is. If he is a Democrat, that will certainly go to Trump's advantage. If he is a Republican, it may not. If he is an independent, that may or may not, depending upon his history. So again, do not jump to any conclusions. Do not. Kamala Harris right now is ahead. That is not to say that I support Kamala Harris. I do not. I have never in my life voted for any political candidate. Never. Whether presidential, congressional, mayoral, whatever. I have never voted in any election. And that will not change this time at all. I have no plans of voting in the election. And for me, no plans means I will not do it because I see no point. There is no purpose. The capitalist world system is continuing to fall. Our hope does not lie in the first world. Whatever happens in the first world, whether Trump is elected, whether Harris is elected, who cares? What matters is the third world and the fourth world. And where will they be in November? What candidate will they support in November? To me, that is the thing that really matters. Another factor, women. Women are regarded as a major factor in deciding presidential elections. Women have been rapidly shifting onto the Harris side. Will this assassination attempt, this unsuccessful assassination attempt, cause them to change? Maybe, but I find that hard to imagine. So if I had to guess, and again, it is only a guess, I do not believe that what happened today will have any real impact on the presidential election. Could I be wrong? Of course. I've been wrong many times before, and this time is no exception. Everything I am saying might be bunk. Trump may be elected president of the United States for all that matters. But again, I think we need to keep our eyes on the prize. And that prize is not the United States. It is not the first world. It is not the capitalist world system. It is the third world and the fourth world. And in my view, until the capitalist world system begins to totter, begins to collapse, the third and fourth world will be kept back from doing that much. For a long time, the United States and its allies have held its finger, its thumb on the third and fourth world and prevented them from doing anything of real consequence. So We genuinely need to see a true collapse of the first world. And I do not see that happening right now as a result of the events of today. I could be wrong, but that is my tentative conclusion. And so my feeling is, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you support or who you don't support. But my advice is sit back and relax. Do not worry. Do not be concerned if you support Trump or if you support Harris. I wish you didn't, but if you do, lay back, relax, because the process is still in play. And it is impossible for anybody to determine at this stage of the presidential contest who precisely will win the election in November. For the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.